Assalamualaikum and very good day, everyone. My name is Muhammad Ahmad bin Oli. Here I am today with my two fabulous partners, Muhammad Amin Izran bin Amran and Muhammad Izwan Irfan bin Azman. This presentation is shared to you for the EIC503 assessment purpose. In this assessment, we are assigned to critique the international intercultural negotiation aspects that we could find in the Netflix series Designated Survivor. So first and foremost, these are the contents that will be included in this presentation. Firstly, I'm going to break out the synopsis of the series so you could know a little bit about what the series is all about. Right after that, I'm going to point out my findings, but start with a short synopsis of the scene, and then I'll be playing the short scene. Maybe the duration is around a minute or less, and then I'll proceed with my analysis. After I finish my explanation on the aspects, I will conclude all of my aspects that I could find in the Netflix series, and then after the conclusion, I will give my own reflection on the lesson that I've learned based on those aspects. So without further ado, let's continue this presentation with the synopsis of the series. So this series is about Kirkman, who is just a cabinet member in United States as the Secretary of Housing and Urban Development. He lived a normal life, had a lovely wife, and also have two precious children. But on the one gloomy day, he was fired from his position as the secretary by the president himself, and that bad day didn't end yet. On the same day, the whole cabinet above Kirkman's position, including the president himself, were wiped out in a tragic explosion at the Capitol. As the president is confirmed to be deceased, Kirkman is chosen to be the designated survivor, which means he is now the new president of the United States of America. So this series actually brought to you on how a normal cabinet member needs to take care of the country, as all of his decisions now reflect the future of the country. The whole season mostly follows Kirkman adapting into the role of president, struggling to prove his capabilities and deal with national and international crises. So that is all for the synopsis of the series. Now let's go to my first point of the intercultural negotiation aspect that I could find in this series.
Your orders?
That's correct. I don't know if you know this, but I have the largest Muslim population in the country here.
That doesn't mean they're doing anything wrong.
Or that they've been radicalized.
No, but I'm willing to bet they know someone who is.
Governor, you can't target an innocent population because you're scared. You have a responsibility.
To all my citizens.
And my first and only priority is to make sure they're safe. Something that Washington, if there even is such a place anymore,
Has proven incapable of doing.
Governor, the federal government is
Was
more than...
effectively snuffed out last night.
There is no Congress, there is no Supreme Court. When it comes to the people of Michigan, I am the highest authority, and you have none over me.
With all due respect, sir, I am the president.
Not mine. So you'll have to excuse me, Mr. Kirkman. While you're busy learning how to become president, I've got 10 million citizens to protect.
Governor?
So the first one is this clip on season 1, episode 2, the conversation through the phone call between President Kirkman and Governor Royce, the governor of Michigan. So there was an Islamophobic activity going on by the police department in Michigan, and the president needs Royce's help to give the order for the occupation to stop the activity instantly. However, there was a twist happening in that scene. Governor Royce, who's the one who's giving the order to the police departments to arrest all of the Muslim population in Michigan. So here is the scene where the president tried to convince governor to stop this ridiculous action. So the first aspect that I could find from this clip is the biased punctuation of conflict. But before that, let me clarify this one thing. Even though President Kirkman and Governor Royce sharing the same national culture, that doesn't mean the intercultural negotiation doesn't happen. As we all know, intercultural doesn't only count based on the country and the nationality, but also can be counted based on the different norms, different power, and different perspective. So from this clip, the intercultural relationship happens between the federal authority, which is President Kirkman, with the state authority, which is Governor Royce. So let's go back to the aspect. This negotiation aspect refers to the individual viewing themselves as the victim, and the other side is the one who brings up the problem. So, based on this clip, the governor claimed that his action is legal and wants to defend the city. But of course, this action by the Governor Royce is so wrong because the action involved all innocent Muslims in Michigan to be arrested. And this move is actually the consequence of the explosion that happened at the capital, which had killed the president and the rest of the cabinet. Despite not knowing who is the real mastermind behind the attack, many people are blaming the Muslim. The wrong and faulty action by the governor has brought up the temper to all Muslim societies and the United States civilians themselves. The negotiation between President Kirkman and Governor Royce became unsuccessful due to how arrogant and biased Royce is. Even though Royce sees his action as legal, protective, and justified, Kirkman sees it as rebellion, unfair, and unconstitutional. President Kirkman also pointed out to Royce, is he that scared of the situation? To indicate that Royce's action is like a coward that only jumps into conclusion. Kirkman also highlighted Royce is abusing his power of authority because he used his power to go against civil rights. And once again, Royce reacts aggressively by saying that Kirkman is overreacting and he has no rights to give him orders. Kirkman also almost made a good negotiation with the governor, but he never cared to listen, saying Kirkman is inexperienced and does not deserve to become the president. Of course, Roy's will to protect millions of lives is pure, but his action itself is unacceptable. So for me, since the governor is a close-minded person, Kirkman needs to threaten him, use his power as the president. He can use the law to highlight that the governor can be arrested if the situation keeps happening. Also, Kirkman can use dirty tricks against Royce, which he did in the end of the episode. Kirkman said that some of the arrested Muslims are the undercover agent, even though there's actually none. So, without any other choice, Royce had to stop the arrest activity and release all of the Muslims. Personally, what I could see based on the scene, bias punctuation will never solve anything in a negotiation. When one is trying to say that they are right, they will fight for it no matter how wrong they are. If the individuals are being biased to win over an argument, that just show how unserious and unprofessional they are. Successful negotiation needs to be done without any bias and using legit data. And of course, need to end with a win-win condition for both sides if possible. Now that's all for the first point. Let's go to the second aspect that I could find from a different clip.
Mr. President, it's time to publicly name Al Sakar as the perpetrator of this crime and take appropriate action.
Okay, before we do anything, the FBI is absolutely certain that Al-Sakar was behind the attack.
75%, sir.
75%?
That's as high as it gets when it comes to a call like this.
75 is still a C on a test, General.
This is not a test, this is war.
All the more reason to get it right, don't you think?
Sir, I know we got off on the wrong foot. You did a fine job staving off the Iranians last night. But I am advising you that the country is on the brink and talk will not work here. America is demanding action and I am giving you an enemy we can kill.
You think I don't want to strike back against the people who did this? I lost colleagues, friends, people I love. I want to find every single person involved in this attack, from planning to execution, and rip them limb from limb, which is why I need to know exactly who did this. Come back to me with more than 75%, and I'll launch the damn missiles myself.
How much more?
25, damn it!
So this is a negotiation between Kirkman with General Cochrane, discussing on when should they launch an attack on Iraq, or the a group of terrorists that have that was claimed to be the mastermind behind the attack on the capital. So in the clip, President and General Cochrane clash over how should the country respond to the terrorist attack. But the negotiation breaks down because both have different perspective and contrast value orientations. So that's why it counts as intercultural negotiation. By the way, the aspect is actually refers to Hofstede's cultural dimension, if you're aware, long versus short-term orientation. Hofstede's dimension describes how a society prioritizes the future. For the long-term oriented to the culture that scored high index in LTO, emphasizes future-oriented goals such as saving, and they also can adapt to change. This culture with a high LTO scores are willing to delay short-term success for future rewards. So in this scene, the long-term orientation can be referred to Kirkman. While for the short term, it focuses on the valuing tradition, immediate gratification, and consistency, and this is so General Cochrane. As someone who is from the military, safety and victory are their priority. But as the man of the country, the president, he should think critically. If he made the wrong decisions, good thing will just last for a while and bad thing will last forever. Decisions without any hesitation will put the country in danger. The US will be put into a war, a greater war. During the conversation, the general demanded an attack as soon as possible before the enemy makes another move. But Kirkman still saying that the terrorist group is not the one who they should be dealing with. Maybe they are not the reason that the explosion happened at the capital. Maybe it is somebody else. Because both have different opinions, the negotiation becomes unsuccessful. What I could see here is the negotiation only can be successful if both sides have same LTO index. If one is short term, the other one must be short term too, and vice versa. But in this case, Kirkman is on the right. We must not be very rushed in the negotiation. We must delve into the problem deeper before proceeding to command any attack on people that we don't know whether they are guilty or not. As for General Cochrane, he needs to be calm, get the more information, and be 100% sure that the terrorist group is the cause of the explosion. And last but not least, the third aspect I found is from episode 7, the negotiation between Russia and the USA.
Do believe that both our countries would be served dealing with this as quietly and quickly as possible. What do you want?
All American nuclear weapons removed from Encirlik Air Base in Turkey.
That will never happen.
Then I'm afraid your asset will face the Russian courts, which do not look kindly on either drugs or spies.
In this clip, as you can see, both are negotiating on something that Russian refer to as American asset. The asset he refers to is Coach Weston, the famous American track and field coach based on the series, okay, not in real life. He is arrested in Russia, accused for supplying drugs to his athletes. But that's not the only reason why he is arrested. He is also a part-time spy for the CIA. Not even the president was aware of it. So in the clip given, the US is negotiating with the Russia to free Coach Weston. But of course, there's a catch. The Russians asked for the disarmament of a military base in the Turkey in exchange for the prisoner. Since Kirkman sees the request is ridiculous, the negotiation just ends there and no advance move are made. So the aspects included in the scene is dividing the pie. The objective of a negotiating is to expand the pie by creating a greater value in the negotiation. As what I mentioned before, it is somewhat compulsory in negotiation for both sides to have a win-win condition. So it is usual for a negotiation to end up both sides to get their sacred value. But the pie is difficult to be expanded and divided fairly in intercultural negotiations. For example, in the clip, Kirkman have difficulty expanding the pie with Russian negotiator because the bargaining style between both of them is different. The Russian demand a high request in which President Kirkman finds it impossible to be granted. As the result, the negotiation doesn't give benefit for each side. Russia's request is declined and America's order to free the prisoner is also broken down. So what should have been done in this situation? Since both are looking for an agreement, the US should try the concession method. Since the Russian demands is too high, he should try giving another option to the Russians. By doing so, Russia can still be interested in negotiating with Kurman since both sides can get some benefit. So that is all of the aspects that I could find from the series. For the conclusions, we could see that a good negotiation can be accomplished not only when both sides win, but also when the negotiation is done fairly, calm, beneficial, and respectful. Negotiation is not only about winning over something, but to understand the other's value. If we ever include a personal opinion in the negotiation, just like Governor Royce, without any personal evidence, just know that you failed to win the negotiation. And not only that, we should also try to fit into someone's culture. If the negotiators want to know the possible outcome in the future, provide information that could be useful for future purposes. If the negotiators want guaranteed data, don't make any reckless assumptions. Be exact in everything so that your negotiator can trust you. And lastly, make sure the negotiation is done fairly. You negotiate because you want something, right? So did the other sides. So we should be fair and equal so that the negotiations can go smoothly. Now, for the personal reflection, what I've learned so far by analyzing the Netflix series, I just realized how precise you need to be in negotiation. Negotiation is not an easy task. Never is an easy task. You need to try to your best to convince the other side a point where you are correct that you can get your desired goal. I also knew that people's style of negotiation differs according to the culture. Sometimes the thing that is right for you doesn't mean that it is right for the others. Some cultures may also view as your reasonable action as something ridiculous. In that case, better study the negotiator first before proceeding with the negotiation. If I ever going to have a negotiation, I need to make sure that I understand the other's culture first. If I want to win something, I need to read the negotiator. Try to understand the negotiator so that the negotiation procedure will go smoothly. So as a result, the other side won't feel offended and I cannot be seen as the weak person in the negotiation. I should also apply intercultural intelligence in my negotiation. And by doing so, I can build trust with the other negotiator when they feel welcomed and comfortable. My bad. So that is all from me. I'm giving the floor to the next presenter.
Thank you, Amar, for the great explanation. Now, my name is Muhammad Izwan Irfan bin Azman, and let's go to my three aspects that I found from Designated Survivor Season 2, Episode 1. First, before we move on to what are the aspects and what are my explanation, first, let's take a look at my excerpt.
Sitting down. You won't be here long enough.
Mr. President, my country...
Has done absolutely nothing but sit on its hands. Not a single overture to the hijackers.
Yes, because they do not listen to us.
And your country, Ambassador Pavlov.
Does not negotiate with terrorists.
Especially with the ones they're paying.
Mr. President, I fear you are seriously misinformed.
No, sir. You have been the one who has misinformed me, and I don't think I need to explain the ramifications of Americans being killed on American soil by terrorists sponsored by Russia.
You are upset. We all are. Many of us have friends on that plane. So, we should all proceed with caution. There's a Russian proverb, "Хороший друг, осторожный друг." A cautious friend is a good friend.
I prefer. Говори одни слова, а дела. My wife's family is Russian. Her grandparents didn't want her dating a poor academic, so I learned their language in an effort to win them over. Because I'm thorough. If a single person is hurt on that plane, let me explain how thorough I will be. I will wake up every morning determined to punish those who are responsible. And when your bosses start calling, trying to figure out why we've severed diplomatic relations, and the sanctions just keep mounting, 2 names will be used in my explanation. Sobeniatna. Sobeniatna. That'll be all.
Now that you have seen my excerpt, I'm going to explain to you the context or the synopsis of this excerpt before I get to my three aspects. In this scene, President Tom Kirkman, which is President of the United States, confronts the Russian and the Ukrainian ambassadors in the Oval Office. Both nations are accusing each other over a military plane incident and possible terrorist connections. As tension escalates, Kirkman intervenes forcefully, demanding cooperation and warning both ambassadors that the United States will not tolerate their escalating conflict. This scene clearly demonstrates communication breakdowns, cultural clashes, and negotiation barriers rooted in differences between three nations. Now that you have understand the context of the scene, let's move on to my three aspects. And for my first aspect is communication styles, which is particularly direct and indirect communication. According to intercultural communication theory, some cultures use high context indirect communication while others rely on low context direct communication. As an example, in this scene, Russia uses a more indirect style. They avoid direct blame and speaks carefully. Ukraine uses a very direct and emotional style. He openly accuses Russia for the terrorist attack. And the United States uses a firm and very direct communication style. This mismatch leads to confusion and frustration. Russia's indirect hints are misunderstood by Ukraine, while Ukraine's emotional directness is seen as aggressive by Russia. President Kirkman, which represents USA, direct intervention becomes the positive part of this aspect. He uses clear and unambiguous language to stop the argument. This is effective because it reduces misunderstanding and brings focus back to the main issue. However, the negative side is that the ambassadors do not adjust to each other's style. Instead, their clashing communication patterns make cooperation almost impossible. Now, let us move on to my second aspect for the excerpt, which is power distance. Power distance refers to how culture views authority. Some cultures have high power distance where people expect strict formality and respect for hierarchy. Other cultures, like the United States, are more low power distant where communication with leaders is more open and direct. For example, in this scene, Russia and Ukraine come from higher power distant cultures. They expect formal and structured diplomacy, but President Kirkman, which is from the United States, shows a more informal and direct leadership style. This becomes a mix of positive and negative outcomes. President Kirkman's assertive leadership helps regain control of the negotiation. He does not allow the ambassadors to take over the conversation and he reestablishes discipline. The ambassadors feel uncomfortable with Kirkman's informal but authoritative tone because these differences in expectation makes them more defensive and less cooperative. This shows how power distance can affect perceived respect, authority, and behavior in intercultural negotiation. Now that we have done with my second aspect, let's move on to my final aspect, which is ethnocentrism. So what is ethnocentrism? Ethnocentrism is the belief that one's own culture is superior to the others. In the excerpt, ethnocentrism is strongly shown by both ambassadors. Each one defends their country without acknowledging the other's point of view. They keep blaming each other, completely ignoring uh, what's right and ignoring all facts. And their national prides become more important than solving the problem. This is very negative aspect because it increases hostility, blocks problem solving, and prevents cultural understanding. Neither ambassador tries to listen or be cooperative uh, until President Kirkman needs to step in because the negotiation becomes completely unproductive due to their ethnocentric attitudes. Now that I have done with three aspects, let's look at what I have said before. In the excerpt, I have brought out three aspects, which is direct versus indirect communication, power distance, and ethnocentrism. And there are positive aspect and negative aspect that we can take from both from all the aspect, which is first the positive aspect. President Kirkman direct communication was effective. He used firm and clear instruction to stop the argument, which reduced confusion and helped maintain order. And second, his assertive leadership helped to regain control of the room so that it prevents the situation from escalating further. This positive aspect show that in intense intercultural negotiation, clarity and decisive leadership can be very useful strategies. Now, for the negative aspect, there were also several negative behaviors, uh, such as the mismatched communication styles between Russia and Ukraine created misunderstanding and unnecessary conflict, and the ethnocentrism from both ambassadors prevented cooperation and because each side defended their country too strongly, which blocked any meaningful negotiation between both of them. This negative aspect caused the negotiation to fail until United States had to step in. Lastly, I'm gonna talk about what I have learned and my thoughts from this excerpt. From this scene, I learned that intercultural negotiation can easily break down when cultural differences are ignored. Communication styles, national pride, and expectation of authority can all influence the success of a negotiation. This excerpt also made me realize that successful negotiation requires patience, cultural awareness, and etc. And what I have gained from this excerpt for future negotiation is I gained several important lessons like I learned to recognize different communication style and adapt when necessary and understanding how power distance affect behaviors and expectation. Lastly, I realized the danger of ethnocentrism and the importance of cultural empathy. So that's it from me. I'll be giving out the next part for from my teammate. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Izwan. Now let's continue the presentation with the intercultural negotiation aspect that I could find in the Season 2, Episode 7 of Designated Survivor series. So for the scene synopsis, the scene takes place in a meeting where Turkish President Fatih Turan demands a motion to censure the US be brought to the floor. He accused the US of the threatening other nations and harboring criminals, escalating the situation with a strong accusation.
However, the motion is blocked due to parliamentary procedure and debate unfold about NATO's asset distribution and mutual defense. Turan ultimately threatened to formally withdraw Turkey from NATO, highlighting the alliance's fragility. So now, let's take a look at the clip.
Let's go.
I do not understand why my motion to censure the United States cannot be brought to the assembly floor.
Parliamentary procedure, President Turan. None of the other member nations are willing to second that motion.
Because President Kirkman has threatened all of them.
Be careful, sir. That is defamatory and false.
You harbor a criminal, sir. That makes you a criminal.
If the Honorable President from Turkey is finished with his little outburst, I believe the committee has important work to do.
Yes. The distribution of NATO's assets, the mutual defense and security this committee is supposed to address.
And which you are allowing President Kirkman to undermine.
The only one who is undermining us is you. By threatening to pull back leases for air bases that protect us all.
Protection is a two-way street. We won't give it if we don't get it.
A point of procedure, Mr. Secretary General. If President Turan is unwilling to address the business of this committee, I think he should be censured.
That won't be necessary. It is apparent Turkey's interests are no longer of value to NATO. So, NATO is no longer of value to Turkey. We'll be sending a formal notice of withdrawal.
So now, let's discuss about the three aspects that we can find in the episode. So our first aspect is negotiation styles. President Turan used a tough style which is characterized by assertiveness, direct accusation and warning such as threatening withdrawal from NATO. The other representative, which is USA, used a number style. USA emphasizing parliamentary rules, facts and systematic agenda control. This clash in style deeply rooted in cultural and national differences and also political views. In result, this increased tension and reduced the chance for cooperative problem solving. Our second aspect centers on emotional intelligence. Turan's emotional approach reflects negative emotion because he is making impulsive accusation and making no effort to build rapport or trust. Western negotiators respond with dignity-oriented directness and defend their position firmly but avoid personal attacks. This highlights cultural differences in emotional expression and respect. The scene portrays negative consequences of emotional mismatch and underline how a lack of tactical empathy creates barrier in intercultural dialogue. This shows the importance of tactical empathy in tense situations, as Kirkman does. So now let's talk about the third aspect. So the third aspect focuses on power distance. Turan's confrontational and authoritative tone reflect a high power distance culture that value power and dominance. In contrast, President Kirkman used formal, structured language grounded in rules and mutual respect, reflecting lower power distance. This mismatch in communication style creates misunderstanding as Turan directness is perceived as aggressive, while others see formal procedure as respectful. So now, let's jump into the conclusion. So in conclusion, the video shows how different negotiation styles, emotional intelligence and power distance issue led to a negative outcome in intercultural negotiation. The differences created tension and made it harder for both sides to work together. One clear negative aspect was Turan's behavior. His rigid and aggressive style along with his emotional outbursts made the other side feel defensive. He ignored the importance of maintaining the relationship and his refusal to adjust how the alliance should operate only made the conflict worse. A better approach would have been using a mix of confidence and warmth, showing understanding and using empathy could have helped build trust and open the door to a more productive discussion. On the positive side, Kirkman Kermit managed the situation well. He stayed calm, used empathy, and listened carefully, which helped keep the negotiation stable. His approach strengthened his position and made it easier for both sides to move toward an agreement. This shows how steady communication and empathy can reduce tension, especially in high pressure situations. From my own reflection, I realized how important it is to notice cultural differences early. Many conflicts can be prevented when we understand how people from different cultures express themselves and what they expect in negotiation. Emotional intelligence and cultural awareness are key skills for building trust and handling disagreement more smoothly. Overall, I learned that being flexible in negotiation can turn conflict into cooperation. When we focus on understanding each other instead of trying to dominate or threaten to leave, we create a better environment for solving problems. This lesson will guide me in the future negotiation for being stay calm and be empathy and respect cultural differences to achieve better outcome. So that's all from me. Thank you.